For years, it was an article of faith that the conservatives who dominated the Virginia legislature would stop any and all efforts to create a state holiday for the late Martin Luther King, Jr. And they did. But Doug Wilder, a history maker himself, outmaneuvered the old guard in 1984, winning a Virginia holiday for Dr. King after trying for 10 years. The King holiday, though, was a hybrid, an oddity. That's because in Virginia, on the third Monday in January, and this continued into the 1990s, paid tribute not only to the Black civil rights pioneer, but to two of the Confederacy's biggest names, Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. Only in Virginia would this contradictory occasion be observed, tributes simultaneous and separate to the minister who struggled to end the bigoted legacy of slavery and two generals in the bloody Southern Rebellion to preserve slavery. Back then, Wilder was a state senator from Richmond, Virginia's first Black state senator. He'd become, in short order, the state's first Black lieutenant governor and the nation's first elective Black governor. Wilder had this to say about that confluence of celebrations. Quote, "Lee, by every account, was an honorable man. So was Jackson, and so was King. They believed in right, all three. Only the perception of right differed markedly." Wilder's always had a way with words. No wonder he's been so successful as a lawyer, a politician, and since giving up elective office as Richmond's mayor in 2008, a professor of public policy at Virginia Commonwealth University. Wilder turns 93 this week, and to think he once described himself as an exhausted rooster. Wilder will be very much the cock of the walk in the days ahead, focus of events in Richmond and Washington to raise money for scholarships at the VCU school that's named for him. One of the reasons the Virginia King holiday became a reality, a national holiday was adopted in 1983. That took some of the steam out of the opposition. President Reagan, a Republican, signed it into law, and the holiday would be observed for the first time in 1986. There are few politicians, Democrat and Republican, who don't use King's words as their own. People are supposed to be judged by the content of their character, he said, not by the color of their skin. A society in which all were equal would be the promised land, where all would be free at last. The political debate shows we have a long way to go. In Virginia, a Republican governor complains about what he calls wokeism, that society is going overboard telling the stories of minorities, women, and newcomers. Meantime, the state's legislature has historic numbers of non-whites and women whose presence speaks to the diversity of modern Virginia. That collision of interests and ideas is often on full display on King Day in Virginia, where the state capitol is brimming with advocates who define freedom very differently, whether it's civil rights or gun rights. Problem is, these different views generate more of a shouting match than a civilized conversation. For the Richmond Times-Dispatch, this is Jeff Shapiro.